Hello and welcome back to Polytoots. In today's quick lesson, hopefully, we're going to be taking a look at bake issues, and I will be using 3D Coat for this, but a lot of this is not 3D Coat specific. So when I say bake issues, I'm usually referring to sort of these strange little artifacts that you just can't seem to get rid of. Like, it doesn't matter how many bakes you do, what kind of settings you tweak, you either make things worse or better. And you may have even tried to like smooth out the other normal map, which to be fair is quite a valid solution to a lot of things, but this particular instance is not one of those. And the reason that this kind of happens on this particular model is that it's so low poly and that it has very kind of contrasting angles opposed to each other, which means when you do like the cage, things will actually intersect with each other, and it just causes all sorts of mayhem. And so we're going to be taking a look at how to fix some of these. There are still a whole host of other kind of issues that will arise depending on what it is you're doing, and I can't cover them all. But if you do have issues, I'm happy to kind of help out in the comments. So let's just go over to the Retopper room after I delete this object. Now this is kind of 3D Coat specific, but also kind of not, because there's nothing new about having projection cages, but obviously make sure that your inside shells are inside and not clipping through, and that your outer shells are outside and not, clipping in it. And so I did have a little issue down here, which I can just correct by just pushing that in. My outer shell, for the most part, seems fine. But you'll see that even if I were to bake this out, the inside cage looks good, the outside cage looks good, but if I just do this and do a bake, you can see here that we still have these really strange problems, and we still have these artifacts appearing over here, and here and there and there, and just everywhere. And as I said before, these ones, like these strange kind of outlines almost. That's because our projection cages are intersecting with each other, and it's a bit confused as to what information it needs to bake. So let's get rid of this again. One of the things to look at, because we know that the issue is our projection cage is kind of intersecting with each other, well, two things that you can do. You can either add in more geometry, which will just create a more accurate cage, or you can separate these meshes out so that they are baked independently of each other, and therefore they cannot intersect with each other. And so for now, we'll start with option number 2. So I'll be back in a minute with these bits kind of split. Okay, so what I've done here is I have 3 layers now. So there's one layer, and then these 3 are in another, and then I have the main, which is just the main crystal. So yeah, we're hopefully going to get rid of those weird sort of lines by just splitting the mesh out. So let's do a bake of these individually, and then we will see. Okay, so here we are after all of the baking, and yeah, so we have some new problems, but most of the old ones are gone. If we were to isolate some of these objects, so let's just look at this guy. There is something kind of strange happening here, but I mentioned earlier that you can oftentimes just like smooth out the normal map, and for this instance that's kind of fine. But we do still have these areas here where the bake doesn't seem to have caught anything, and that's because there wasn't anything there for it to catch, because we only baked this one piece out as it was. So that's an expected result, and we can fix that. But let's take a look at these other ones. Yeah, specifically right here. So this is a bit confusing, because my outside cage was fine, my inside cage was fine. We couldn't identify anything peeking through, and yet we still end up with areas like this. So let's see which one it is. This one's number 1, so let's just get rid of that. So one thing you can do to try and fix this is, if we were to say number 1, see the problem, as I said, with the meshes being like so low poly, this is kind of what's causing the issue, in that you kind of want to add in some supporting geometry, but oftentimes this isn't always the best solution, especially if you're trying to keep your mesh low poly. But I will just add in an edge loop here just to kind of prove a point, and then I'll also show you what happens if you or rather what you can do if you don't want to add in extra geometry. So yeah, I've just added in an extra point now, and so if I were to go and bake this out, you can see immediately that now we have an area where it's actually poking through a bit because it has that extra geometry to work with. So now I can actually just give that a little push, and we'll just bake this out. And so here we are again with the bake, and yeah, as you can see, it's gone, fixed. So that's pretty cool. But again, if you don't want to add in lots of extra edge loops just for the sake of trying to kind of fix up normal map issues or a bake that didn't quite work, what you can do instead is, so let's maybe, is there a more obvious area? Maybe down here. We'll try to fix up this bit. So what you have to kind of keep in mind, let's just hide those. Start with this one actually. Yeah, so what you kind of need to know is that the normal map texture is just like any other texture. So if I set this to standard blend, and I'll press the 2 key just because that will put it into self illuminated mode, you can see here, quite obviously kind of what's gone wrong. But you can also see what you might need to do to fix it, because the colors of course on a normal map just represent normal information. And so in this particular example, what we actually want to do, if I just duplicate this normal map, and then because this is 3D coat I need to detach it just so it will allow me to paint on it. I'm going to just reduce my opacity a bit. What I'm going to do is I'm going to press the V key, which is basically just a color grabber, and I'm going to grab like the nearest kind of colors here, and every time I kind of move down I will press that again just to try and grab, and basically just keep doing this. I might probably want to speed this up with more opacity. So yeah, we'll do something like this. So that's the one side, and now let's just get the other one. Where was it? Ooh. Okay, so down here. And basically just the same thing. And so now if we bring back our objects, so we can see here, let's compare it with the previous one. So here's the old one, and then this is our new one, and if we can turn them both to normal maps, normal map, and I'll come back into a lit mode. So there's the fixed, and that's what it was. So we had this kind of weird patches here where it wouldn't bake, and then we just kind of fixed that up. So now it actually kind of looks like these separate pieces of geometry kind of clipping through each other, like the normals are pretty clean, they're pretty sharp. So yeah, I mean, I'm just letting you know that you can just paint away all of your problems. But if you don't want to do that and you would rather just use extra edge loops and stuff, I will skip over to an example now where I'll just do like an auto retopper. Okay, so here we are with an incredibly messy mesh. I've just done an auto retopology, and then I've also just done an auto unwrap, just to kind of prove a bit of a point here. So let's just bake this out. Okay, that's done, and it's worth noting this is all just one mesh. So yeah, let's take a look at this, make sure our sculpt is hidden. So yeah, I mean, it's not without its own tiny little issues. I mean, you will often get bake anomalies regardless of what you do. But because we were dealing with a much denser mesh, the projection cage would actually be able to kind of cast things a lot more accurately. In fact, I mean, the topology around here isn't actually all that great. Like, there's not much happening here, but still we don't have any of those weird intersection issues where the cages were just going through each other. So yeah, that kind of just wraps up that, I think. Just a quick kind of overview of how to fix like a few normal map or general bake issues. As I said before, there is a whole host of reasons as to why these things happen. But yeah, so that's it for now. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.